Hey, good morning, guys. Good Monday morning, and thanks for checking out your latest long-range forecast. Michael Clark here with BAM Weather with the latest on the outlook here going forward, mid to late June. Listen, I think everybody knows it's really no surprise, no secret. Markets, price action, all hinged on weather right now, and I think that the weather forecast going forward is probably the most critical aspect to this entire thing. And I've got a pretty good idea, I think, at this point where we're going to go. So I'm going to go on the record and tell you what we think here with this video, and we'll get right into the latest. All right. So this is a look at rainfall over the weekend. Again, not a lot here across the eastern belt, and it will continue to remain dry here for the next few days. However, I think the moisture chances really are increasing, and some threats may start to arise here as early as mid to late week across the eastern Corn Belt. Now, again, that doesn't negate the fact that the last 7 days there just hasn't been a lot of rainfall in here. There's been a lot more of it across portions of the central and western Corn Belt, especially in the south central plains. Really going to work on the drought conditions down there, and the rain is really starting to wipe out a lot of that. So especially folks across portions of Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, we just need to see that rain here. Okay, so the focal point in today's video is, listen, are we going to start to work in moisture, right, here across the eastern belt? Where will the dry issues kind of migrate to? Where do we think that happens to set up? I'll tell you first and foremost, I think if anything's going to continue to pose issues, it's this area in here, and most certainly probably even further west than that. You probably come in through here. This might be where there's less organized chances of rainfall as we get deeper into June, but not necessarily lack thereof, if you will. Listen, this is a look at percent of normal rain. And as we said, we know that over the last 2 weeks, it hasn't rained barely, if any, for a lot of folks here in the east. You look at temperatures, luckily, it hasn't been exceptionally hot. We've had some bouts here of heat, but listen, we have to keep things in perspective. It's been a lot drier and a lot hotter than this before. All right. I know some of you, especially northern Indiana, Michigan, I know some of you really need the rain. I totally understand that. But when we look at just overall the picture here, we have to keep in things in perspective that it has been a lot worse than what it is right now. And it's just important when we're talking about the overall outcome of this crop, right? Locally, down to where you're at, understood, it's different. We know that. But big picture here is what these videos are about, and that's what we're focused on. Week 1 precipitation, again, keeps it relatively obvious where the concerns are, and that is where there's a lack of precipitation being depicted here across the Great Lakes. And my pen's being a little crazy there, apologize there. But additional rainfall here in the next 7 days has really started to show up, especially across Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and portions of Missouri. This is new and kind of welcomed change in the weather modeling inside 7 days. That's critical, I think, that we get that out there. Now, week 2, again, we continue to see some rain chances here. This is just the GFS model. These change run to run. Keep that in mind. However, note, you obviously see that in terms of just significant coverage of rain, you can still see where that's at a little bit. Now, I think this migrates west to east as we, get further into June and into July. But again, nonetheless, there's rainfall chances there in that forecast. This part of the video is where I really want to stress, why I think the pattern's going to go where it's going to go. We've been watching this kind of stuff for a long time, 12, 13, 15 years. And when you see kind of what we kind of call the base state or the overall just general, setup in the atmosphere from the ocean up across the planet, you really have a hard time arguing where this pattern should be going. There's no support of a very hot and very dry forecast going forward. It just isn't. Can there be a heat wave here and there? Can there be the dry spell, or windows of lack of precipitation? Sure. But in terms of a significant, widespread drought with a lot of heat, it's just not supported. There's a lot of things that are arguing that to be true. First and foremost, look at the change in the sea surface temperatures the last 30 days. We have a strong rising signal in the PDO. The PMM is warming up. The central ENSO regions here across the equatorial Pacific are warming up. The AMO is warming up. All of these really big global teleconnection patterns are warming up. And that just means an increase in moisture, really, in my opinion. And the correlations support that. And honestly, all of it supports ridging in the far western, northwestern portions of Canada and the U.S., and a trough in the Pacific Ocean. And that just means a cooler risk in the eastern U.S. with a wetter risk. We have a forever positive angular momentum, again, another sign of El Nino. We have a strong indication of a predominant, really westerly wind in the zonal wind forecast here in the eastern Pacific, along with predominantly rising air in the Pacific and sinking air in the maritime continent and the Indian Ocean. That is a classic El Nino signature. Okay, so the air is sinking here, it's rising here, and that's really an indication of El Nino. And the overall outcome of that is a trough, cooler temperatures, and increased chances of precipitation. Okay, there's no doubt really we're heading into a strong El Nino. I just don't doubt that at this point. The other big indication is the North Pacific pattern. A big low is moving in over the next couple of days, and the correlation to that, or the thought, is the 20th to 25th of June is a big cool front's going to come in. Okay, so it's really just the overall base state's really going in that general direction. Getting there is going to be interesting, but look at this. We go out here just the next 48 hours, big trough in the eastern U.S. Temperatures are way cool, and that's why I just am not overly concerned with the lack of precipitation as it sits right now, because we're not basking in 95-degree heat every day and nighttime lows at 70. This woke up this morning, temperatures are in the 40s, okay? And it's June 5th, so it's not hot. We've got to keep that perspective there. We're not waking up to 70 degrees, okay? Now as we go forward, the main feature that's kept us dry, this big ridge in the northern plains, I'm going to take you out here to day 5. Watch the retrograding of that ridge from the North Plains into the northwest here and southwestern portions of Canada. Look at the big trough that is worked in the Aleutian Islands up there near Alaska. All right? In this pattern, when you think about this, your downstream effect here is going to be where that ridge sets up. Where there's a ridge, there's always going to be a trough, right? And so what we'll watch that trough start to develop underneath this ridge, and getting out into the extended period for a time, what starts to happen is the ridge here in the northwest kind of backs off a little bit. A trough develops in the western U.S. And this is before, I think, a bigger shot of cooler air. So we're going to warm it up a little bit. Okay, we will have a period where probably the 15th through the 20th of June, we start to see above normal temperatures show up as this trough in the western U.S. establishes itself. Now, at the same time, we will have a flow coming in where we're running a jet stream pattern and disturbances up along the periphery of the ridge. So while it might be a little bit warmer, it's probably going to start to become active with this flow pattern aloft. That's the mid-June forecast. A little bit warmer, but also probably becoming more active. There's probably a big front in there closer to the 23rd, 25th of June that will knock this out, cool it off, and bring another widespread rain chance. Organized rain chance. Whenever you have a pattern like this, it's more of that thunderstorm cluster risk, right? So I want to show you that and show you what that looks like. We'll zoom it in here. And again, there's the 1 to 5, it's dry. 6 to 10 starts to get wetter, but look, you can see the flow opening up from the west coast where the trough is. Okay? And then what starts to happen here is you get into the extended. Here's your 10 to 15. Really, everybody starts to get in on rainfall chances. Why is that? Well, that is because what I just talked about, that mid-June period before the trough comes in, we develop this ridge down here, and you get a flow pattern over the top. that promotes chances of rain and thunderstorm clusters. All right. At the same time, in that pattern, when you look at those temperatures and the forecast of temperatures from normal, they're going to be seasonal to slightly warmer. All right. This is the 1 day departure for day 15. It's warmer than average. But again, I think that fourth week of this month, the last week of the month, I think we're looking at a big cool down in that regard. Again, it's seen right here. That's the reinforcing idea here is a big, strong North Pacific trough, and I think that's really what this correlates to. And this hangs out here for weeks. It doesn't go away, which makes me think that as of right now, if I had an early prediction on pollination, it could be that it's cooler and wetter. That would be the early prediction right now for the pollination period this year, early July, is it's a cooler and wetter one. All right. Here's the correlations. Okay. Positive Enso, correlation's a trough. All right. It's just cooler. It's a wetter correlation. It's not problematic is the point. Okay. When you look at the next 4 weeks in the CFS Weekly, it shows that. Look, here's week 2. There's the trough. Week 3, again, this is that period right before the front comes through, 2 into 3, where you may have some ridging here and an active flow pattern that brings in precipitation. But look what happens last week of June on the CFS into the first couple days of July. That's a trough with blocking across the top. That's a cooler signal. Okay, it's noted clearly. Week 2, we start to see the flow pattern increase precip chances. Week 3, it's over the top. Okay, week 4, it's back down south a little bit. The area of concern has migrated west a little bit, and the Northern Plains, Southern Canadian prairies. It's exactly what we think may happen. Precip comes in through here and through here. And listen, this is overall a wetter outlook. Again, I still think it's coming. All right, here's your temperature forecast. There's the warm period before the cool down. Week 3, warmth. This is early in week 3, in my opinion. Followed by the trough that comes through and brings in the cooler temps. If you ask the EPS Weekly, the latest run, we'll get a new one tonight. This is the first 2 weeks of July. It's wet, and it's overall seasonal. Maybe slightly warmer, maybe slightly cooler. There's not a big signal either way for the first 2 weeks of July. Okay. The CFS, if you ask it right now in terms of what it's thinking for July, overall, its last 2 forecasts have trended considerably wetter for the overall outlook. So again, the thought process is we're dry for a few more days. We work in moisture chances late week into the eastern Corn Belt. We have a mid-June warm-up where we'll see some flow around the periphery, the top of the ridge, some thunderstorm cluster action. It will be warmer. We may have some 90-degree days in there a couple of times. And then after the 20th of June, the last week of June into the first week of July, a cooler and wetter risk emerges. And I think that might be the story for pollination right now. So if that gives you any indication of what price action might do, in my mind, I know what that means. I think you all do as well. If you have any questions, let us know. Have a great day.